Thank you so much, Dr. Ogata, for your presentation. We do have a question. Someone would like to know, what is your definition of agroforestry?
Well, agroforestry is the management of especially trees according with certain boundaries in the different ecosystems where it is implemented. Is not the same agroforestry in tropical rainforests than in temperate forests in California. No, it's basically the management of trees and according with certain limits.
Thank you. And I'll invite the attendees, if you'd like to come on live and ask your question. If you'll use the raise hand feature, we will invite you to open your mic and ask your question. Thomas is asking, has the government supported your work?
No. It has been my pocket as a professor, and my interaction with indigenous communities, such as in the Mazatec area, Oaxaca, or with the people in Tabasco.
I have a question as a lover of bean-to-bar chocolate and really the end user, the consumer. What can I do as a consumer? And then also, what can I do as an advocate for what you're speaking about?
I think you need to be informed, and because informed people is the one who will make the change. If you know where the seeds are coming from and what is the process or the ways of cultivation, how these seeds were produced, it will be very, very important, because when you know that you are paying certain amount of money, but you know that this money will really benefit the producers and it will be under a rational use of nature, you will be more than happy to contribute. Otherwise, it's like to be blind, and it is not possible to keep the way of doing these current methods of cultivation of cacao, because they are worse than sugarcane or just bananas. That is what it's become. And we need to know, we need to learn that cacao is not an endless cultivation. It has limits that we should not cross. Otherwise, it will hit us. It's what the people in the tropical rainforest, where they designed this shade agroforestry system of cacao, learn. They are part of the ecosystem. It's not that the ecosystem will serve them. It's a different way of thinking. And that is why I think it's important.
Yes, I appreciate your pointing out the connection. It was very fascinating to me from the very start that you pointed out the connection between language and this whole issue. In that, if we which is something that the colonizers do, force out the traditional languages so that those traditions aren't passed on, and people think that what they've been taught by the colonizers is now the right way, and that gets passed from generation to generation. But how, again, I guess as my question is, as an advocate, how do I influence, as it starts with one voice, me as one voice, how do I influence my family, my neighbors? What kind of language can I use to stop people from making that impulse buy at the grocery store? how do I help inform the consumers?
Well, I think this kind of meetings, this kind of reunions is one way to share the information. We have to distribute this knowledge, because otherwise, if we keep doing these things, chocolate will become extinct, because it is not possible to keep doing this way of producing chocolate. I think we need to go back to the small batches. Okay, the small batches will ensure that there will be certain amount of chocolate. It's not endless. I mean, and that is what most companies do. They flavor milk with a little bit of chocolate and a lot of sugar. Then when you show to people some piece of real chocolate, they don't like it, because sugar can be very addictive. So that is one of the things, is how we are going to change the perception. I think if we empower the small producers, bringing these small units of production, is the way that we are going to change the perception of chocolate. And I think kids are not going to accept a candy by chocolate. I mean, if they go to a grocery store, they will know what chocolate means, and they will not be cheated, because it has happened with other products. The problem here is the globalization. We want to sell chocolate all over the world and sell now. Historically, in China, chocolate was not something that people like it. Now they like it. Are you gonna fill the market in China with more than 1 billion people? That is the problem. We need to set certain limits.
We have a question. Do you only work with the indigenous communities in Mexico?
No. In fact, the people in Tabasco, they are called the mestizos, because they speak Spanish. They have a way of living completely different as if you compare with the indigenous people. In the other community with the Mazatec people, 90% only speaks Mazatec, not even Spanish. So it's a different kind of interaction. The same way I have been working with people from the Chinantec ethnic group. They are completely different, and most of them only speak their own language.
Thank you. Ning, I noticed that you had your hand up, but you put it back down. Would you like to ask Dr. Ogata your question? I'm going to allow you to open your mic and ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Very fascinating presentation. I'm very interested in pursuing agroforestry with cacao. I've been reforesting and my plantation in Malaysia, and my concern about Africa, and I don't see an easy out. I want to be hopeful, but I look at Africa and how much cacao that's being produced, and this amount, if we look at economics, is what is, I believe, suppressing prices. So as long as productions are high, and I totally want to support the empowerment of farmers and smallholders making chocolate. But I'm looking at the numbers, and if 100% of them succeed, it's still a drop in the bucket in terms of the amount of cacao beans they're producing versus what they may be able to turn into chocolate. And that's not considering their ability to sell the chocolate for a profit into a market that is beyond just, you know, eating for themselves and within their community. How do they get this chocolate out into the larger market? Is the infrastructure in place to export this? You know, then we're talking about marketing. How do we create demand globally or internationally? So my question is, I'm grasping for a light of hope here. How do you see some of these systemic issues that what can we do? How can we address this in order to have a better future for the farmers and cacao in general? Thank you.
I think you're right. The big problem is the way it is produced in Africa because of the amount of raw material that is available. But the important thing is try to create extra values to the end products. So if you certify that you have a certain variety that is grown in a agroforestry diversified system, that's another value. And if the money is gonna really help the producers, that's another one. And so you are piling up small extra values so that you can finally try to reach certain type of consumer willing to pay for this difference. That is what I'm hoping, and that is what I'm trying to promote here. It is not easy, but what I'm trying is reach this type of informed consumers that will be willing to pay for this type of chocolates. I can tell you, for example, in Mexico City, in one of these fancy areas, a box of 144 chocolates filled with something, let's say sugar, because marmalades and things like that, can cost up to $150 as this small box. So I think there is hope for making this different way of doing things and informing people what are they paying for. That could be, I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you, Dr. Ogata. Thomas, you have a number of questions. Would you be willing to come on and answer your questions? I'm going to allow you to talk and invite you to unmute. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you, Tom.
No, this has been a fantastic conversation. There's a group of us that meet on Clubhouse every day from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we talk about this topic quite a bit, actually. And I'm actually applying for working with a small cooperative in Ecuador that wants to improve their making of paste, what they call cacao honey and jam. So this topic's very, very much of interest to me. I made a comment that I had recently ordered a couple pounds of Bicolor and made some chocolate with it. And I just wondered what Dr. Ogata thinks of the flavor of Bicolor. I'm still kind of processing it. And also, from the big industrialist type perspective, I was on with Mark Shapiro on Clubhouse. He lives in Singapore, and he's been in the industry a long time, and he made a comment that when you look at profit margins, the difference between getting an 83% rather than an 80% recovery rate on the nib when you crack and winnow after you roast is the difference between some of these big companies making money or not. It just shows how their margins and are so slim because they process so much of it. And it sickens me to hear that, because I'm a small chocolate maker myself. So I'm trying to figure this all out, and I'm like I said, I'm trying to see what impact I can have to make the situation better. And I'd love to come to Mexico someday. We have a family member that has a business in Oaxaca, and I would love to go there and meet you someday. Thank you.
I will be more than happy to receive you, because we need to create a different way of doing things. And in regard to Theobroma bicolor, in Mexico, in the area where I work, is preferred in many communities than cacao, but it is used as a drink. It has a more greasy flavor, and if you drink it, your lips will be filled with this grease from the seeds, and that is the way they use it in Mexico. I have seen, for example, in Ecuador and in Peru, they use it as a how can I say? They use it roasted as if they were peanuts, and they eat it like that. Or the other is sancochado, which is fresh and fried with palm oil, and they eat it like that. But in Peru, there is even a huge area where they are planting just Theobroma bicolor. They call it macambo, and they were planning to do a project to sell it as if they were peanuts. But that's all that I know about Theobroma bicolor.
Thank you.
Okay, David has his hand up, so I'm going to invite him to ask his question. David?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello, Nisao.
Hi, David.
I guess in the interest of full disclosure, Nisao and I know each other for many years here in Mexico. I'm talking from Mexico.
He's the designer of the methods of the 5 principles that I am using.
So I have one question I have for Tomás is, what does your relative do as a business in Oaxaca that piqued my interest and my curiosity? But I have a question not so much for Nisao as for the whole group, and it's a great concern. And Tomás underlined it in his statement. Now that it's becoming, Tomás, we could talk about a mezcal company. I would love to know more about that. But now that it's becoming very clear after the IPCC report last week that corporate activities themselves are a major cause of the environmental and, well, and also economic crisis, but the IPC didn't get into that. Do you think that it's now appropriate do you think that it's appropriate now to begin to attack the large chocolate companies for their environmental and social impacts, but in a very, very large way, rather than simply through alternative marketing and alternative products? Because if you think about the large manufacturing companies and the way they treat the growers in Africa, the standard of living of the people, well, you know all this, but this degrades into a tremendous process of social and environmental destruction that has to go hand in hand with the development of alternative means of producing cacao and chocolate products. I'll stop there.
Any of the attendees would like to answer that question? If you'll use the raised hand feature, I will invite you to open your mic. David, it seemed a very complex question. Maybe if you, especially for me, maybe if you simplify the question.
Sure. The people who grow cacao in West Africa are generally being paid very, very badly, very low prices, and they're being forced to deforest large areas because the companies have argued that there are tremendous economies of scale. I hope that expression makes sense. And so they don't want to deal with individual small-scale farmers, but they're not paying prices that allow the farmers, the growers, to either have the kind of diversified forest environments that Nisao was talking about, or even to process locally the first stages of the cacao industrialization process. As a result, they are very, very poor, and they get an infinitesimal part of the value of the whole production chain. Am I clearer now?
Yes.
Yes, it's a clear question, and I'm not sure it's a clear answer. But Ning, I'm going to invite you to open your mic because I see that you would like to have give a comment.
Yeah, I was just trying to summarize David's question, and I have these sentences typed out. That's just so that we can all take a jab at it. African farmers are not earning a lot. They are not paid enough to consider diversifying, and because that as a whole value chain of cacao to chocolate considered, they're only economically involved in a very small percentage of it. So yeah, I believe that's true. You know, it's not very diversified. But also, I think one thing that needs to be said, as how I understand cacao is being farmed in West Africa, is that the farmers are deforesting land that they're not buying, as in they're deforesting whatever land that is available to them, or were preserved or should have been under protection, but because that they're just in such poverty that they have no choice but to plant in areas that are previously maybe held some semblance of diversity, and they're clearing that and planting in a way that doesn't allow other species to coexist with cacao. And that's what I understand as happening in Ivory Coast. I don't speak of all West Africa, not Nigeria, definitely not all parts of Ghana. If anyone can concur, or David, if you have an insight into that, I welcome any information. Thank you.
Can I comment?
Yes, please do.
Yes, please, anyone.
Yes, no, I think that you're exactly right. And the problem is that this is being further encouraged by an international effort by a group called AGRA that Bezos and the Melinda Gates Foundation is sponsoring in Africa to modernize agriculture on the continent. It's going exactly in the wrong direction. There is a very concerted campaign against the Gates Foundation and this AGRA effort by the International Agricultural Trade, EIATP, organization in the United States. And a man who has documented this very brilliantly is named Timothy Wise, W-I-S-E. I'll put his name in the chat. And it's iatp.org. And I would, it's very, very important to understand that the international capitalist community is really going about trying to do exactly the wrong kind of modernization of rural life in Africa. And Africa right now is the major supplier of low-grade cacao for world chocolates. I'll stop there.
Let's see, Tan has a question. How many cacao trees can you plant at 1 hectare in a agroforestry system?
We have been working with that, and we can put around 1,000, 1,100, something like that. Is planted with the other shade trees, and the idea is that you can have more than one product from the same agroforestry system. For example, I didn't say this in the talk, but in that area where I've been working, oranges and lemons are simply not worth it because the price is so low that a bag of oranges will be paid for $1. So what we decided, I got in touch with some friends from Italy, and we decided to process and extract to process it and make limoncello and 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗀. And then a bottle of 𝗪𝗔𝗪𝗀, limoncello will cost as much as 20 or 30 bags of orange, no? And that's the way we are trying to put more surpluses for the community. The same with the wrapping leaves for tamales. What we designed was to collect from the plantation and then make a cart, and with a cell phone, one of the guys go to the market and share the carts, and after that they sell in the market with the people who make tamales. This is the book David was talking about. Isn't it, David?
Yeah,
This is the book.
I can see it. That's one book, Timothy Weiss's, but he has a more recent book, which is a direct attack on the Gates Foundation.
Okay.
But that's a very good place to start.
Yes.
Thank you. And David and Ning, I didn't interject with that question to gloss over what you were talking about, because I think it's very important, but it's quite overwhelming to think, you know, being just a small grain of sand, how can we have an effect on such a large global systemic issue? My head is swimming trying to think of, you know, what can be done. You know, in our country, in the United States, there's not this type of information. I mean, we're in a group of people today that already have these thoughts in mind. But if I go out on the corner and I talk to the folks that I come across, they don't see this issue. They don't know about what's going on because it's not a common conversation. So I wonder how, as our time is running out, maybe any of you can provide just one thing that folks can do sort of to get this information out there. I mean, I know that what I can do, because my dollar has power, I can make choices about how I spend my money, but how can I influence the guy next to me on how he spends his money? Because that ultimately will, you know, it's all about the money and where you put your money. And I think that's, you know, how we can make the change, but how do we get the word out there?
Can I interject again?
Yes, sir, please do.
I think that one way to do that is by joining hands with groups like IATP and another organization which is worldwide called GRAIN, G-R-A-I-N. GRAIN produces a monthly journal called Biodiversity-Focused. Nisao, you know?
No, I don't remember.
One second, let me check. GRAIN. Well, I will pass it on to Nisao, and who will distribute it to all of you.
Okay.
I don't want to take more time right now. It's grain.org, and they produce a monthly journal in I think 5 languages. Tomás Ogata's name is Nisao, N-I-S-A-O. But the important thing is these organizations are also part of another effort in the United States called the Next System. Have you heard of that?
No.
Teresa?
No, I haven't.
Okay. I suggest that you look at the Next System, because what they're looking at is the way in which we have to have a discussion about the nature of consumption and the nature of social structures. And what they're doing, one of the interesting, exciting things that they're doing is they're building curricula for high schools and for universities to try to ask the question, how do we confront these issues? How do we join these issues so that people understand that it's not only an environmental problem, but it's a way of life? And I would urge people, especially now in the light of the IPCC report, that you think about all of the way in which you communicate in terms of the impact of these alternative approaches on the world environmental crisis.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Mrs. Balu, I invite you to, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I had my phone on the mute, so I just want to make sure I'm not interrupting anyone else. Yeah, see, as a botanist, I know the importance of intercropping and also crop rotation. I have seen a lot of places like the rice became, in India, there's one place where we used to have the highest yield of rice in the whole world, nowhere else that has been replicated. But when we had a famine in 1960s, we went into hybrid varieties and not the native varieties, and also three crops of rice instead of 2 crops of rice and a lentil in between to replenish the soil. And today, a lot of farmers are going hungry because they cannot grow. That the earth has become sterile. So so much fertile soil has been become sterile and not usable. So I'm really interested in how to take this forward, and maybe we have to have more conversation. And I'm even thinking maybe I should get permission from Dr. Ogata to get his presentation and translate in my local language and circulate it to the people. I don't know how many people will listen, but at least, as you said, 1 grain of sand, we should also make something we can try, and then hopefully it'll create a ripple effect. That's our hope.
That would be great.
So as our time is running low, Dr. Ogata, is there one thing that you want to leave us with? I'll invite you to have the last word, as it were.
Well, I think that first of all, I want to thank again for this opportunity to talk with this diversity of people from very different countries. And I think this is one way that we can try to change things. And the other one that I want to point out is that it would be very, very good to find a way to install some study cases with this minimum unit of production in different areas, let's say Mexico, and see how people can empower themselves and try to start making changes according with the necessities locally, and from there try to show how these extra values that you can add to the production can reach a different type of consumers. And I think this would be a very interesting testing, so that we can try to see how things behave at this level. I think the small one is going to be, if we reproduce it many times, I think there are a lot of chances of having good results. That's all I want to say, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ogata, and thank you everyone that has joined us today, and for those that have contributed to the conversation. Mrs. Balu?
Yes, there is a. Yeah. So thank you for your patience and staying for the whole webinar, because our webinars are not helpful unless you participate. It's not just the presenter, but there should be somebody to listen to that and take the message and act on it. I see that today a lot of conversation going on, a lot of people are really motivated to do something about this. So what I'm asking is, whoever is here today participating live, if you are interested in meeting again or bringing more webinars, please send a note. And also in the chat, if you can share your contact information, we will share with only the participants who came today. We won't share your information outside of this group, but it'll help each other to stay in contact and do something as a collective effect. So if you're interested, please put your information in the chat. And also we thank you for doing it, and we thank all our family members, our employees. And Teresa has been one of the backbones of our company to do these webinars, and Raghavendra in India, and everyone, all the cocoa farmers, because without them, or all the farmers, for that case, because the farmers are the ones who are bringing our food. We have a saying in our language: if they don't put their foot in the mud, you don't have the food on your table. And it's very true. We are in air-conditioned rooms or climate control rooms, and we earn money. But the thing is, the farmer who is making food for us, sometimes they go hungry unless they have a diversified system, like Dr. Ogata was showing the person in the interview. That was very interesting, is that we may not have money, but we don't go hungry because we have so many varieties of trees that give us the subsistence to live. So that's what people should think about when they're looking at monocropping or looking at the short-term benefits. So I hope everybody stays healthy and safe. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Thank you all.